first job was Chick-fil-A, and after working at Chick-fil-A, I worked at a bank, and then after that bank, I worked at another bank, and honestly, I loved working in banking. It's just, I don't know, for me, it's like so fun and enjoyable, and I'm not like a math girl, and I don't like enjoy math, but like I love working with money. So the first bank that I worked at is this like huge bank in my state, and I'm not gonna like name names because I cannot afford to be sued, so just assume that everything in this video is alleged. But I literally started working there when I was like 19, 18 or 19, and it's a huge bank in my state. But if you know anything about this bank, really, it's not like Chase or Bank of America where they just have, you know, like certain standards. In my opinion, it's like the kind of bank that you go to as a teenager, opening your first like checking account and stuff like that. So that's kind of like what this bank is like, and there's not like a whole bunch of stories surrounding it. I just remember how much I hated my boss, and I didn't know it at the time because I was like so young, but I absolutely hated my boss. She was like this older lady, and the one like specific thing that I remember about her is that she always went on vacation. Like, she never really worked. She was the bank manager, of course, but she just like never came to work. And her assistant branch manager, oh, I still remember her name, I still remember what she looks like, was just such an insufferable woman. And I remember the policy at this bank was like no piercings, no tattoos, none of that. And mind you, like, we were inside a grocery store, so it was just weird. But one day, one of my coworkers, he had a sleeve. He came in and they were like chastising him and saying like, where's your sleeve that you put over, like, if you have tattoos? And he was like, oh, well, I forgot it, like, I didn't even think about it. And I remember that they made him tape printer paper, like paper that you print on. They made him tape it around his arms to hide his tattoos. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, like, what am I getting myself into? Because I was 18, so I thought, okay, this is like a prestigious job. I thought I was like moving up in the workforce, like entering my career. And I saw that happen, and I was just like, oh my god. And the funny thing is, like, he was way older than me. I think he might have been like 26, and he taped the paper to his arms. And they just, if you had like, even because on Wednesdays we would wear like business professional, so you would like wear your own clothes. It didn't have to be uniform, but it would like be business professional. And if you couldn't wear cotton, like you couldn't wear a shirt made out of cotton, even if it was like a dress shirt. And I just remember one day from the car ride to work, because my car didn't have AC, and I literally live in like the hottest state, so you know, like when you kind of like sit in the car and it's hot, your back kind of sweats and your shirt gets kind of wrinkled. And I remember, we'll call her E. That was the big boss. Miss E pulled me into the like little office and was like, your shirt is wrinkled. And I was like, the front isn't, but the back might be, because girl, it's 110 degrees outside and I don't have AC. Like, yeah. And she just really gave it to me. Gave me a stiff reaming, and was just like, next time this happens, I'm gonna write you up. It was so much closer to my house, literally like right down the road from my house. And I wasn't going to be like working in a grocery store anymore because it was its own building. And I really, really, really wanted to move to this location. And she was like, oh, you know, you're just having such a good time over there. You just forget about us and you want to move over there. And I was like, girl, like, you are the one who asked me to go work at this location. It's not my fault that I fell in love with it. And I just begged the branch manager at the standalone. I begged her. I was like, please transfer me over here. Let me come work at this location. And she's like, okay, if you want to work here, I'll put in the information and talk to your other manager and get you to work here. And I was like, yay. And I ended up actually being transferred over there, which I was like so thankful for, because that team was the best. We had the best time, and like, I loved working there. But before I could like officially move, Mrs. E, she was like, you never paid for your uniforms. And I was like, girl, it's an online portal. Online, like, they're not gonna send it to me unless I paid for them. And she's like, well, you need to go through your bank statements and look for the payment. And at this time, I was banking with this bank. And she's like, I'm gonna go through your account. I'm gonna look through all your transactions to see if you paid for these uniforms. And so she was like, I'm gonna look on my end, and in the meantime, you need to look on your end. And until I get proof that you paid for these uniforms, I'm not gonna let you transfer. And I was so frustrated because the thing I hated the most about working in the grocery store branch was that they were open on Sundays, and I hated working Sundays. And I couldn't find like the information, and I didn't want her looking in my account, and I was just feeling so defeated. And I just remember my new branch manager at the new location, she was like, don't worry about it, like, they're not gonna let you check out, they're not gonna send you uniforms unless you pay for them. And come to find out, I very much did pay for the uniforms. I ended up doing a payment plan because work uniforms are freaking expensive, and I had to do a payment plan for them. And I had my new branch manager look through my transactions and stuff, and she helped me find like the payments. But I just remember how much I hated that boss so much. Like, I never really had a boss that I like despise, but like I said, she was always on vacation, so like the times that I knew that she was going to be in the office, I was just like, oh, I'm just like dreading being around her. Because the thing I hated about working in the grocery store is that you would have to like go out into the actual store and talk to people. Like, this company, this bank, they really wanted to sell accounts. And my thing is, and the same thing I would always say to my coworkers, is that when it comes to like banking or buying a car or buying a house, like, you just can't convince somebody that they need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know when you need to open a new bank account, you know when you need to get a new car. Like, it's not something that someone could just stop you and say, you need to do this, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to do that. So I hated trying to like persuade people. And that was like the one thing about that job, is they advertised it as like a personal banker job. And in the interview, they tell you, yeah, like banking, personal banking, everything that comes along with that. But they're sneaky, because what they don't tell you is that it really was like a sales job. It was a sales job. You're selling accounts, selling auto loans, just selling. And I don't have a salesman like mentality, personality. I'm good at helping people when they know what they want, but I'm not good at like trying to push or persuade somebody to do something that they aren't 100% sure. So that's why I really hated working for that company. And then they would just want you to sell these accounts. And then of course, like, when you persuade people to open these accounts and stuff, then if they're not 100% sure, they're not going to use it. And the account, inactive, and then you get in trouble for it. And that would happen all the time. I would open up so many accounts that just nobody wanted to use because they didn't need it in the end. Like, they felt pressured. And we would have to call them, we would have to email them and send them mail to their house and just do all of this ridiculous shit. And I remember the district manager, I still to this day cannot stand her. She was like, you know, if you dedicate your life to this company, you'll never need college and you'll never need to go to college. I was going to nursing school, and look at me now. I dropped out of nursing school and I'm the district manager, you know. And I was like, girl, why would you say that? It just felt very cold mentality. And the most embarrassing part is, like, they would have like dress up days, so to like sell accounts or get people to like apply for auto loans and stuff, they would make us like dress as like superheroes or wear a favorite football team. But the most embarrassing one, and this is like where I drew the line, was on tie day. We had to buy a tie and wear it to work, like with our uniform, so people could ask us like, why are you wearing a tie? And then we could use that to like sell them accounts and stuff. I did not do it. I absolutely refused, because I'm not a child. I'm not a kid. Like, I don't want to have a job where you have to like dress up, and it's just embarrassing. It's a little bit dehumanizing, and it just like makes you feel like shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, because people wouldn't, you know, they would kind of just look at us and like, you know, kind of like, oh, yikes. And it was just like one of those things that they absolutely did not disclose in the interview. And it's like, no, y'all really need to be honest about what this job truly is. But oh, there's just so many. And Miss E didn't like me. I wouldn't say she didn't like me, but I worked with another girl she didn't push as hard because we were a standalone branch, so it's not like we could like go outside and just ask people to join. But so they would like come to us and stuff. But there was like other things like auto loans. I remember specifically, oh, I hated auto loans because, girl, like, you know, if you need a car, you know what I'm saying? She was a really good boss, and the pressure was a lot lower there, which I loved a lot. The biggest thing though from that location that I remember is we got robbed. We got robbed. We got robbed. We got robbed. Oh my goodness. This was not too long after I started working there either. And thankfully, I wasn't there at the time that we got robbed. I was supposed to work later in the day, and I just remember like my parents sending me a news article, and they're like, oh my god, your job got robbed, like, are you there? And I was like, no, you know, I'm supposed to go to work later. And thankfully, like, nothing happened, like, nobody got hurt. The guy did get away, and actually after he robbed that location, he ended up going, I think like a few days later, to the first location that I worked at and robbed them too. And I believe after the second time he got caught, and his excuse was that he needed money to pay his girlfriend's bills. But we very, very, very much did get robbed. And I just remember we had to go to like this crisis counseling, and they were asking us what they could do to like make us feel more safe, more secure. And we were like, we need security. Oh, because so yeah, I'll tell you, I'll get into it. So we said that we needed security, and they told us, literally looked us in our face, like all females, because we didn't have any guys that worked at this branch, so we're all females. They looked at us, right, and they said, we cannot get you guys security, like we cannot hire a cop, we can't get a security because that will make the situation more dangerous if you were to get robbed again. And I about lost my mind, because honestly, how willing are you to rob a place if you see a cop or a security guard sitting in there with a gun or something to deter you? Like, I'm pretty sure scientifically the chances are very, very, very much low. And I was just taken aback. Like, I could not believe that they just told literally like 5 females who just got robbed that, no, sorry, I know we're asking you what we can do to make you feel safer, but the one thing that you say will make you feel safer, we are not gonna do for you. I was just mind blown, and I was like, why would you even ask then? Like, what is the point of even asking? So that's when I knew. I was like, this company is not gonna be for me forever. And then I remember not too long after I had left the whole company, I believe during COVID, another location, because they have locations everywhere, but in town, another location actually got robbed. And I remember I was like on Facebook being messy, girl. I was being messy. Well, in my eyes, I don't think that I was being messy, but it was under the news page, and you know, someone was like, why do they always get robbed? Why does this brand or this bank always get robbed? And I simply commented, as someone who used to work there, like, I didn't have any affiliation or anything, and it wasn't on my Facebook, but I was like, because they simply won't hire security. And I guess my old branch manager, well, it's not I guess, because she did, she texted me and she was like, can you please take that comment down, like, it's very harmful, and you know, someone could see that and rob us and, you know, injure us. And out of respect for her, I did take it down, but it was the truth, and I stand by what I said. Messy or not, it's the truth. Like, why would you ask your employees what you could do to make them feel safe and then just kind of spit in their face? But like I said, out of respect for my branch manager, because I really did like her so much, and I was so close to her when I was working there, and even a little bit investments. Like I said, they have so many branches all over the state, and they need to be doing right by their employees. If you want your company to last and have longevity, don't you think you should take care of your employees? And I'm not even talking like in a monetary way, like, you know, but it also makes me think about when I was working in the grocery store branch, it was coming to like that time of year where you can like make elections for your job to kind of donate a portion of your check. I don't know if this is like a standard thing, and I'd only ran into it at this company, but you can like donate to different organizations, or you can say like, oh, every paycheck I'm gonna give 5% of my paycheck to Meals on Wheels or something like that. And I just remember Miss E at the time really was pressuring us to contribute and to donate. Now looking back at this time in my life, and now that I'm older or wiser, I would not have done that at all. And especially because literally my paychecks every 2 weeks was like $348 every 2 weeks. So do you think I had the money to be donating? Like, I'm like, you make salary. I know that you're making like over $100,000 a year. You need to be the one donating and giving up a portion of your check. Like, why would you ask me, a little 18, 19-year-old girl, to do such a thing? And so she pretty much forced us in a way. Like, she didn't say, oh my god, you need to do this, but she didn't say that we didn't. She made it seem like we didn't have the option to opt out of it. Like, she made it seem like you had to give something. And like I said, I never experienced anything like that at the time. I was literally like 18. I didn't know better. But looking back, I really wish I would have stood my ground and said no. After I worked for this company, I worked for another bank. This is, I consider it more of a mom and pop type of bank. It kind of had a credit union vibe, and banks and credit unions are two completely different things. A lot of people don't know that. And also, I will give you a little tidbit. If you're going to buy a car and you're taking out a loan, open up a credit union account and get your auto loan through them. You will get the best rate. I promise you. Credit unions have way better rates than banks do. That's just my little tidbit for you, and I hope that it helps. Anyways. So I loved the last bank that I worked at. It was literally me, my branch manager, another person, and then that was it. Like, that was it for our banking team. And then we had another girl, or woman, who worked in the office with us. It was a standalone. I always tell my husband and like anybody that if I ever need to go back and get a job, I would 100% work back at this bank. Just everything from like the corporate level on like the pay and how they treated their employees and like everything like that, down to like management and everything in between, was like the most amazing company I've ever worked for. And we were not slow, but it was like much more of like a slower vibe and flow. And at the time that I started working there, I was pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant when I started, and then I finished out my entire pregnancy. So I worked there for like over 9 months. But they were so good to me. They treated me so well. Everybody got along. We just all liked each other. The vibe was amazing. Chef's kiss, like literally the best job I've will say that in between working for these two banks, I did work at a software company, but that's another story for another time. But since we got along so well and everything just like, in my opinion, flowed so well, like we didn't have a lot of problems. But there was one girl who was working there way before I ever started, and then when I got hired, like I said, I was pregnant, and like the one thing about her is our boss had an Alexa, an Alexa, an Alexa, an Alexa, an Alexa. So we would just like play music all day long. Like we could just say, Alexa, play blah 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 blah, and we could just listen to our music, and it was just amazing. You know, obviously like bank appropriate music, but pretty much anything that you could get censored. But this girl, I think it was because I was pregnant, something about her, she would sing all day long, but there was a specific way that she would sing. She would sing very, very high pitched, kind of like between like an Ariana Grande note and like whispering, and it was just like very high. I can't even replicate it. But you guys, I promise you, something about the sound would drive me so crazy that it would make me nauseated. Like the minute she started singing, I had this visceral reaction to like throw up. It drove me crazy, and I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, you know, can you stop that? Like, I just really tried to let it go, and I didn't really care for her. Like, she was just a very careless person. Like, she was late a lot, and she just did things that like were not by the book. That drove me crazy. But the one thing was like, she was late all the time, and it would always be me and her opening because we were the only two people that worked there besides our branch manager. So we would have to open, and I'm prompt. I'm always on time. So sometimes she just wouldn't show up. So my manager would have to come like 30-45 minutes earlier than she was supposed to open the branch with me. And then it was just so embarrassing. And every single time, one time she didn't even show up for like 4 hours. And then she was like, oh, I took a muscle relaxer. My back was hurting, so I wasn't able to get up on time. Are you kidding me? And I thought they were gonna fire her that time, but they didn't. And I was like, okay, you know what? She has tenure. Like, she's worked here for a while. They're gonna give her a second chance. But no, the final straw, which was like oh my god, this girl, we'll call her Pink, 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 Pink. She was like Pink, like gave a customer money and was like talking to them and calling them and texting them from her personal number, and it all just blew up. They had to like get her drawer out of the safe and audit her and do an audit and like all of these things, and it was crazy. But it had been coming for several months because she just constantly was like doing something. She was on her phone, she was losing the mail key because we had to go down to like the official post office and check the mail for the bank. She was leaving her keys at home, leaving her computer unlocked, leaving her drawer unlocked. She was always late. So something was always happening, and then this was the final straw. I remember because we had like an annex building down the road. The big manager from down there came like the next day, and he was there, and then my manager, and I didn't know like if they were gonna fire her because my manager like didn't tell me anything. Obviously, even though we were close, like she was very professional, and I love that about her. And I was just like on the edge of my seat because I'm like, what is gonna happen? What is gonna happen? And like I had told them things that had like kind of happened before. Like she told me like, oh, if your drawer is over a couple cents, just throw however much money it, like if it's over like a penny, she was like, just throw the penny in the trash. And I'm like, girl, we work at like an federal institution. Like if you steal or do something shady like that, they are going